The research ship Horizon moved slowly through the empty space at the edge of the Andromeda Galaxy. It was a quiet day, like many others before it. The ship's engines hummed softly as the crew went about their daily tasks. Alan Whitman sat at his science station watching the screens with tired eyes. As the chief science officer, he had spent countless hours searching for new discoveries in this vast emptiness. Today seemed like it would be just another uneventful day. He took a sip of his coffee and leaned back in his chair. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," Alan suddenly called out, sitting up straight. His fingers moved quickly across the control panel as he tried to make sense of the readings. Captain Laura Bennett walked over to his station, her footsteps echoing on the metal floor. "What is it, Alan?" "There's a large object drifting about 20,000 kilometers from our position. It's not showing up on our standard scanners, but the deep space sensors are detecting unusual energy patterns," Alan explained, pointing to the faint blip on his screen. Laura frowned. "Asteroid?" "No, Captain. The shape is too regular, and it's giving off traces of artificial materials." "I think it's a ship," Alan replied, excitement growing in his voice. "And it's huge, at least 3 times our size." The bridge grew quiet as everyone turned to listen. First Officer Richard Coleman joined them, looking at the readings over Alan's shoulder. "Any signs of life?" Laura asked, her voice serious. Alan adjusted his instruments, then paused. His eyes widened. "Yes, very faint life signs. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. But they're weak, Captain. Extremely weak." Laura straightened up, her mind racing through protocols and possibilities. Unknown ships in deep space could mean many things, most of them dangerous. But the presence of weak life signs changed everything. "Plot an approach course, Mr. Coleman, slow and careful. Alert the medical team to prepare for possible rescue operations," she ordered. As the horizon moved closer, the mysterious ship became visible on their main screen. The crew fell silent at the sight. It was unlike anything humans had ever built. The ship was shaped like a series of connected rings, with what looked like crystal structures growing between them. Parts of it were dark and damaged, while other sections glowed with a faint blue light. "It must be ancient," whispered Alan, checking the readings. "The materials show signs of extreme age. Some parts of the outer hull have been exposed to space for at least 1,000 years. Laura made her decision. "We're going to help them. Whatever they are, they need assistance." She tapped her communication badge. "Security Officer Porter and Medical Officer Sullivan, report to the shuttle bay immediately. We're launching a rescue mission." William Porter arrived first, his tall frame filling the doorway. "Captain, with all due respect, this goes against first contact protocols. We know nothing about this species." "I understand your concerns, Will, but those are living beings out there, and they're dying," Laura replied firmly. "We can follow protocols and let them die, or we can help them and deal with the consequences. I've made my choice." Grace Sullivan hurried into the room, her medical kit already in hand. "The medical bay is ready, Captain. My team can handle emergency treatment for the survivors, though treating unknown aliens will be challenging." An hour later, the boarding team, sealed in their spacesuits, cut through an airlock on the alien vessel. The interior was cold and dark, with only their flashlights illuminating the way. Strange symbols covered the walls, and the architecture followed curves and spirals rather than the straight lines humans preferred. "The air is thin but breathable," Grace reported, checking her instruments. "Temperature is just above freezing. Something's been keeping basic life support running, but barely." They moved deeper into the ship, following the life sign readings. The corridors widened into a vast chamber filled with rows upon rows of transparent pods, stretching far into the distance. Inside each pod was a being, tall with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shimmer with a pale blue glow, even in the dim light. "They're in some kind of stasis," Grace said, examining the nearest pod. "But the systems are failing. This pod is already shut down, and the being inside—" She didn't finish her sentence. William moved from pod to pod, checking the status displays. "Most of these have failed, but some are still active. One pod near them suddenly lit up brighter than the others. The being inside moved slightly, its four-fingered hand pressing against the transparent surface. The pod hissed and began to open. The team stepped back, weapons ready, but not raised. The alien emerged slowly, its movements careful and deliberate. It stood nearly 7 feet tall with a slender frame and 4 arms that moved with graceful precision. Its face had no nose, just breathing slits, and large, deep eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. It looked at each human, then raised, its upper right hand in what seemed like a greeting. When it spoke, no sound came out, but Grace, William, and the others heard a soft voice in their minds. "You are not like the others," the voice said. "You came to help?" Grace stepped forward. "Yes. We detected your ship and came to offer assistance. Many of your people are in failing stasis pods. We want to help if we can." The alien's eyes blinked slowly. "I am Ethral, elder of the remaining Nivorans. We have drifted for so long." Its mental voice grew stronger. 17 civilizations we encountered before yours. All turned us away. All feared the consequences of helping us. "Why would they fear helping you?" William asked, still cautious. Ethral's large eyes seemed to grow sad. "Because of those who hunt us. Those who have sworn to eliminate every last Nivoran from existence. We were once billions across 3 galaxies. Now we are only thousands and growing fewer each cycle as our systems fail." The alien gestured to the endless rows of pods. "These are all that remain of our people. The last ship, carrying the last Nivorans. We have waited so long for someone brave enough to help." Grace looked around at the thousands of pods, many already, dark and lifeless. "We will help you," she promised. "Our ship isn't large enough for everyone, but we can begin repairs on your stasis systems and call for more help from Earth." "Earth," Ethral repeated, the words strange in their minds. "We know nothing of your world or your people. Why would you help us when so many others refused?" Captain Laura's voice came through their communication system. "Because that's what humans do. We help those in need regardless of where they come from." She had been listening to the entire exchange. "Bring Ethral aboard the Horizon. We need to learn more about their situation and what kind of help they need." As they guided the alien toward their shuttle, William looked back at the countless pods stretching into the darkness. "These Nivorans have been abandoned by everyone else in the galaxy," he said quietly, "until now." Captain Laura Bennett stood alone in her private quarters on the horizon, watching the stars through her window. The Nivoran ship drifted nearby, its ancient form now connected to her vessel by power cables and temporary bridges. 3 days had passed since they discovered the aliens, and Laura had not slept well since. Her communication screen beeped, demanding attention. She knew who it would be before she answered. The stern face of Admiral John Reynolds appeared on the screen, his expression tight with anger. "Captain Bennett, I'm receiving reports that you have not only made first contact with an unknown alien species, but are actively providing aid and considering bringing them back to Earth. Is this correct?" His voice was cold. Laura nodded. "Yes, Admiral. We found the Nivorans on the edge of extinction. Only about 3,000 have survived in working stasis pods out of what were once billions. You have directly violated first contact protocols," said the Admiral. "You were supposed to report the discovery and wait for instructions. Instead, you've potentially exposed Earth to unknown dangers." Laura looked straight at him. "With respect, sir, waiting would have meant watching more of them die. Their systems were failing. They've been drifting for over 900 years. The Admiral's face showed no sympathy. "That is not your call to make, Captain. You will cease all rescue operations immediately and return to Earth. A specialized team will be sent to assess the situation." "By then hundreds more will be dead," Laura argued. "And there's something else you should know. The Nivorans are being hunted by a species called the Vorax. 17 other civilizations turned them away out of fear of Vorax retaliation." The Admiral leaned forward. "Then you've potentially made humans a target for this hostile species. This is exactly why protocols exist, Captain. You are ordered to return to Earth immediately. That is final." The screen went black. Laura stood in silence for a long moment, then pressed her ship-wide communication button. All senior officers report to the conference room in 15 minutes. We have an important decision to make. Around the long table sat the people Laura trusted most. Alan Whitman fidgeted with his datapad, dark circles under his eyes showing how hard he'd been working. William Porter sat stiffly in his chair, his security officer training visible in his careful posture. Dr. Grace Sullivan looked tired, but determined after spending days treating the few Niverans they had managed to revive. "I've been ordered to abandon the rescue mission and return to Earth," Laura told them bluntly. "Admiral Reynolds believes we've put humanity at risk by helping the Nivorans." Alan spoke first. "We can't just leave them. We've only managed to stabilize about half the stasis pods. The rest will fail within weeks." "The Admiral's concerns aren't without merit," William pointed out. "If these Vorax are as dangerous as the Nivorans claim, we could be starting a war humanity isn't ready for." Grace shook her head. "I've spent time with the Nivorans we've revived. They're peaceful beings. Their telepathic abilities let them share feelings and memories, not just words. I've felt their gratitude, their desperation. They've been running for centuries with no home. There's something else to consider," Alan added, pulling up data on the main screen. "The Nivorans possess incredible scientific knowledge. Their understanding of biology alone could help us cure dozens of human diseases. Their technology, even on this damaged ship, is centuries ahead of ours." Laura listened to them all, then said, "I've never disobeyed orders in my career, but I can't follow this one. I'm calling for a ship-wide vote. Every crew member should have a say in this decision, since all our futures may depend on it." While the Horizon crew voted, back on Earth, the news about the Nivoran discovery had leaked. People gathered in city squares, watching giant screens as government officials debated what to do. In the Grand United Earth Council chamber, Ambassador Samuel Jackson addressed the representatives from all Earth nations. His voice echoed in the vast room as he spoke passionately. "We cannot turn our backs on a species in need," he argued. "If humanity abandons the Nivorans like 17 civilizations before us, what does that say about who we are? Our ancestors looked to the stars and dreamed of meeting other intelligent life. Now we have, and they need our help." Security Director Patricia Wells stood to respond, her voice sharp with concern. "This isn't about compassion, it's about survival. The Vorax destroyed Nivoran civilization across 3 galaxies. Earth has just begun its journey to the stars. We have 40 colony worlds and 8 billion human lives to protect. Is it worth risking all that for 3,000 aliens?" As the debate raged on Earth, Dr. Sullivan made an important discovery on the horizon. She rushed into the conference room where Laura was reviewing the ship's vote results. "Captain, I've found something remarkable," Grace said, placing a medical scanner on the table. "The Nivorans possess incredible regenerative abilities, unlike anything we've seen. Their cells can repair damage that would be permanent in humans. I believe their biology could help us cure cancer, extend human lifespan, maybe even repair spinal injuries." Laura looked up from her datapad. "The crew vote is complete. 87% want to continue the rescue mission even knowing the risks." She stood up, decision made. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them the Horizon will begin reviving all surviving Nivorans and request additional support ships for transport." When the message reached Earth, it caused an uproar. Military leaders demanded Captain Bennett be removed from command. Corporate leaders worried about potential economic impacts of alien contact. Religious leaders debated the spiritual implications of another intelligent species. But when videos of the Nivorans were shared worldwide, showing their gentle nature and their gratitude toward their human rescuers, public opinion shifted strongly. People held signs and protests reading, "Humanity must help, and we are not alone." 3 weeks later, despite the official orders against it, 5 more Earth ships arrived to help the Horizon. They brought medical teams, engineers, and supplies. Captain Laura stood on her bridge watching as the first support vessel docked with the Nivoran ship. "They're saying Earth is divided on this issue," said William, standing beside her. "But more people support your decision than oppose it." Laura nodded. "It's not about politics or protocols anymore. It's about doing what's right, If helping a dying species brings the Vorax to our doorstep, then humanity will face that challenge together. In the medical bay, Ethral watched as more of his people were carefully revived from stasis. The ancient Niveran turned to Grace, his mental voice touching her mind gently. In all our long journey, he said, no species was willing to risk their safety for ours. We had begun to believe such compassion did not exist in the universe. Your people have proven us wrong. Humans are unlike any species we have encountered. Grace smiled as she adjusted the medical equipment. We still have much to learn from each other. But that's what humans do best. We learn, we grow, and we help others when we can. 6 months passed since the rescue of the Nivorans. On a small, previously uninhabited island in the Pacific Ocean, a new settlement had taken shape. Curved buildings made of a strange blue-white material rose among the palm trees. Humans and Nivorans worked side by side, building a new home that the aliens called New Haven. Daniel Howard stood on a hill overlooking the settlement, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. As Earth's top linguist, he had been studying the Nivoran language since their arrival. Unlike most humans, Daniel had shown a rare ability to understand not just their spoken words, but also the subtle mental impressions that formed a key part of Nivoran communication. The sky here changes with such beauty, said a gentle voice in his mind. Daniel turned to see Silva, the daughter of Elder Etheral, standing beside him. Like all Nivorans, she stood much taller than most humans, her forearms moving with natural grace as she gestured toward the horizon. On our homeworld, the sunsets lasted for hours, she continued. The sky would shift through 20 shades of purple before darkness came. Daniel smiled. I wish I could have seen it. Your people have lost so much. Silva's large eyes blinked slowly. We have also gained much. Your people gave us something 17 other species would not. A chance to live. Below them, in the main square of New Haven, a cultural exchange center had opened its doors for the evening. Humans from nearby cities came daily to learn about Nivoran history, art, and technology. The Nivorans, in turn, studied Earth's diverse cultures with fascination. Not everyone welcomed the aliens, however. On the mainland, protests had grown. In recent weeks, a group calling themselves Earth First had gained followers with their message that humans should not risk their safety for aliens. Their leader, a man named Frank Miller, appeared regularly on news programs warning of the danger the Nivorans might bring. The Vorax destroyed the Nivorans across 3 galaxies, he would say, and now we've invited their enemies to our planet. We've painted a target on Earth. Daniel and Silva walked down to the cultural center, where dozens of human visitors were watching a demonstration. Elder Etheral stood in the center of the room, all 4 of his hands moving in careful patterns, as he showed a group of human doctors how Nivoran healing techniques worked. By understanding the flow of energy through living cells, Etheral explained, we can encourage the body's natural healing abilities. This is how we lived for centuries without illness. Dr. Grace Sullivan, who had been working closely with the Nivoran since the rescue, watched with fascination. This could revolutionize human medicine, she said to the group. We've already used modified versions of these techniques to successfully treat several patients with previously incurable conditions. The Nivorans had been sharing more than just medical knowledge. Their understanding of energy production had helped humans develop more efficient power systems. Their knowledge of space travel and communications had advanced Earth's technology by decades in just months. As night fell, Daniel walked Silva back to her home, a beautiful curved structure that seemed to glow softly in the darkness. They had become close friends during these months, with Daniel learning more about Nivoran culture than any other human. Your father told me about the cosmic resonance today, Daniel said. It sounds similar to some human spiritual beliefs, the idea that all living beings are connected through some greater force. Silva nodded. Many truths are universal, Daniel. My people have always believed that minds are connected across the stars. That is why we find your species so remarkable. Despite having no natural telepathic abilities, you show great empathy. You can feel what others feel, even without sharing thoughts directly. Their conversation was interrupted by a loud explosion from the direction of the cultural center. Daniel and Silva ran back toward the main square, where smoke billowed from a damaged section of the building. People were rushing out, some injured and covered in dust. "What happened?" Daniel asked a security officer who was helping evacuate the building. "Bomb," the officer replied grimly. "Someone planted it near the main entrance. We have 3 humans and 2 Niverans injured, but thankfully no one was killed." In the days that followed, the bombing was claimed by the Earth First extremists. News channels showed Frank Miller denying direct involvement but saying, "This is what happens when fear takes hold. People will protect their planet by any means necessary." What surprised many humans was the Nivoran response. Rather than demanding protection or expressing anger, the aliens joined human volunteers in rebuilding the damaged center. Elder Etheral made a public statement standing beside the human governor of the region. "We know what it means to fear the unknown," the elder said, his mental voice broadcast through special devices developed for human media. "We do not blame humans for this act of violence. Those who did this are few, while those who have shown us kindness are many." The image of injured Niverans helping to heal wounded humans and rebuild what had been destroyed changed many minds. Public support for the aliens grew stronger, and the Earth First movement lost followers. 1 month after the bombing, the new cultural center opened with increased security, but also increased attendance. Humans came in even greater numbers to learn from the Nivorans, and the aliens continued to share their knowledge freely. In a research lab on the edge of New Haven, Dr. Sullivan worked with a team of Nivoran healers. Together, they had developed treatments that could regenerate damaged human tissues, cure several types of cancer, and even repair certain brain injuries. "Your biology is different from ours," explained a Nivoran healer named Mel Tor, "but the principles of life are similar. What heals us can be adapted to heal you." Admiral Laura Bennett, promoted after her decision to rescue the Niverans, stood on the bridge of Earth's newest defense vessel. Built with Nivoran guidance, it was faster and more powerful than any ship humans had previously created. She looked out at the stars, wondering what might be coming from the darkness between them. On her screen appeared a report from deep space sensors. Strange energy readings had been detected at the edge of the solar system. Something was out there, watching. Laura kept this information classified. Earth would prepare quietly, building its defenses while continuing to welcome their new allies. In his home near the New Haven settlement, Daniel worked late into the night with Silva, developing better translation systems. Neither of them knew that their work would soon become crucial to the survival of both their species. The Vorax were coming, and when they arrived, understanding would be humanity's most powerful weapon. 3 years passed since the Niverans found sanctuary on Earth. Their settlement of New Haven had grown into a thriving community where both species lived and worked together. Niveran technology had helped humans advance their understanding of medicine, space travel, and energy production. In return, humans had given the Niverans something they had lost centuries ago: a home and hope for the future. Early one morning, alarms blared across every military base on Earth. Deep space, sensors detected a massive object entering the solar system, an object far larger than any human or Niveran ship. Admiral Laura Bennett was awakened by the emergency call in her quarters at Earth Defense Headquarters. "What do we know?" she asked, rushing into the command center, still fastening her uniform. "It appeared suddenly at the edge of the system," replied her second-in-command, Richard Coleman. "Based on its size and energy signature, we're looking at a warship, and it's broadcasting a message on all frequencies." Laura nodded grimly. "Let's hear it." The speakers crackled and a deep, harsh voice filled the room. The message repeated in hundreds of languages, including Earth languages and the Nivoran tongue. "Surrender the Niverans, this is your only warning." "The Vorax," Laura whispered. "They've found us." Within hours, Earth's leaders gathered in an emergency session. The Vorax ship continued its slow approach toward Earth, ignoring all attempts at communication beyond their original message. Elder Etheral and other Niveran representatives joined the human leaders at the meeting. "We always feared this day would come," Etheral said sadly. "The Vorax have pursued our kind across the stars for centuries. Now they have found us here, and your world is in danger because of our presence." The Earth Defense Minister looked grim. "Our estimates suggest their ship outclasses our entire fleet combined. Even with the improvements we've made using Niveran technology, we cannot win a direct confrontation." "Perhaps we should consider their demand," suggested one nervous official. "Surrender the Niverans to save Earth." Laura Bennett, now an admiral, with gray starting to show in her hair, stood up angrily. "Absolutely not. We didn't rescue the Niverans just to hand them over to their executioners 3 years later. There must be another solution." The debate continued until a message arrived. The Vorax had agreed to send a representative to Earth for talks. Their massive ship had stopped its approach and now orbited Mars, a silent threat hanging in the sky. 2 days later, a small Vorax shuttle landed at a neutral meeting site in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. A special platform had been constructed for this historic first contact. Human and Niveran representatives waited nervously as the shuttle door opened. The Vorax ambassador stepped out and the humans gasped. He stood nearly 9 feet tall, his body covered in armor-like scales in shades of deep red and black. His eyes were yellow with vertical pupils, and when he moved, it was with the fluid grace of a predator. 4 armed guards flanked him, each carrying weapons unlike anything humans had seen before. "I am Drexicor, voice of the Vorax Dominion," he announced, his voice deep and rumbling. "I come to speak with the leaders of Earth." In the conference room, Drexicor towered over the human representatives. Elder Etheral and 2 other Niverans sat on the opposite side of the table, their normally calm demeanor showing signs of fear. "You have welcomed enemies of the Vorax Dominion to your world," Drexicor began without preamble. "This marks you as our enemies as well. However, as you are a young species and may not understand the threat the Nivorans pose, we offer you one chance to correct your mistake." "What threat?" asked Samuel Jackson, now serving as Earth's chief ambassador. "The Niverans have lived peacefully among us for 3 years. They've shared knowledge and helped us advance our civilization." Drexcor's yellow eyes narrowed. "The Niverans are not what they appear to be. Before our conflict began, they ruled over hundreds of worlds. Their telepathic abilities allowed them to enslave entire species, forcing their will upon weaker minds. The Vorax fought to free those worlds." The humans looked at the Niverans in shock. Etheral's 4 hands trembled slightly as he responded. "That is not the full truth," the elder said quietly. "Our species were once peaceful trading partners. We used our telepathy to communicate, not control. A misunderstanding led to fear, and fear led to war." "Lies," hissed Drexcor. "The Niverans developed weapons that could control minds across vast distances. We stopped them before they could enslave the galaxy." As accusations flew back and forth, Daniel Howard sat quietly at the back of the room with Silva beside him. Over the years, his understanding of Niveran communication had grown stronger than any other humans. He felt the genuine pain and regret in the Nivorans' mental voices, but also sensed they were not sharing everything. That night, Daniel met with Silva in a secure room deep beneath the Earth Defense Headquarters. "There's more to this story than either side is telling," he said. "I need to know the whole truth if I'm going to help." Silva looked down, all 4 of her hands clasped together in a gesture of sorrow. "Both sides speak partial truths," she admitted. "My people never created weapons to control minds, but we did have great telepathic power. The Vorax feared this power, even though we used it only for communication and healing. A translation error during a critical diplomatic meeting was misinterpreted as a threat. The Vorax believed we planned to invade their worlds. And the war began." Daniel finished. "But after all these centuries, surely the truth could be discovered. The leaders who started the war are long dead," Silva said. "But hate and fear live on, passed down through generations until the original cause is forgotten." Daniel paced the room, thinking hard. What if we could communicate directly with the Vorax leadership, not just with words that can be misunderstood, but with the kind of direct sharing that Navorans use among themselves? Impossible, Silva said. The Vorax minds are not compatible with our telepathy. We've tried for centuries. But what if we combined your telepathy with human language patterns? Daniel suggested, excitement growing in his voice. I've studied both forms of communication. We might be able to create a bridge between your mental impressions and their understanding. Over the next 3 days, as the Vorax ship loomed in Earth's sky and military forces around the world prepared for possible attack, Daniel and Silva worked frantically on their idea. They developed a new form of communication that combined Nivoran telepathy with human linguistic structures. When they finally presented their plan to Admiral Bennett and Ambassador Jackson, both looked skeptical. You want to request a direct audience with the Vorax Supreme Commander? Laura asked, bypassing Drexcore entirely? Daniel nodded. The ambassador may have his own agenda. We need to reach the actual leadership. Silva and I believe we've created a way to share experiences directly, beyond words that can be misinterpreted. Ambassador Jackson frowned. And if it fails? Then Earth will be no worse off than it is now, Daniel replied. But if it works, we might end a war that has lasted for centuries. Laura looked out the window at the stars, knowing that somewhere above, the Vorax ship waited for Earth's answer. Make the request, she said finally. It's time to try something that hasn't been tried before. The request for a meeting with the Vorax Supreme Commander was met with silence for 2 long days. Earth's defense forces remained on high alert, and in cities around the world, people looked up at the sky with fear. The massive Vorax warship could be seen as a bright point of light, even during daylight hours. On the morning of the 3rd day, a message arrived. The Supreme Commander had agreed to meet with a small delegation from Earth, including Nivoran representatives. The meeting would take place on a space station orbiting Jupiter, far from Earth but still within the solar system. It's a trap, warned Security Director Patricia Wells during the Emergency Council meeting. They're isolating our representatives away from Earth's defenses. Daniel Howard shook his head. No, it's a gesture of trust. They're meeting us halfway, literally. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done so already. After much debate, the delegation was chosen: Admiral Laura Bennett, Ambassador Samuel Jackson, Daniel Howard, Elder Ethral, and Silva. They would travel on Earth's fastest ship, equipped with the latest Nivoran-inspired technology. As they prepared to depart, Laura pulled Daniel aside. This communication method you and Silva developed, are you certain it will work? No, Daniel admitted. But we've tested it between humans and Nivorans with remarkable success. It creates a bridge between different types of minds. If the Vorax are willing to try it, we might be able to share understanding in a way words alone cannot achieve. The journey to Jupiter took 3 days. When they arrived, they found a simple space station had been constructed in orbit around the giant planet. The Vorax shuttle docked shortly after their arrival. The Supreme Commander of the Vorax was unlike anything the humans had imagined. Where Ambassador Drexcore had been imposing, Supreme Commander Thexashal was ancient. His scales had faded to a dull gray, and his movements were slow but deliberate. 4 elite guards accompanied him, their weapons ready, but not raised. I have ruled the Vorax Dominion for 200 of your years, Thexashal said when they gathered in the station's conference room. I personally fought in the original war against the Nivorans. I have seen the destruction of worlds and the extinction of species. Why should I listen to the words of humans who know nothing of this ancient conflict? Daniel stepped forward. Because we offer something different. Not just words which can be misunderstood or twisted, but direct understanding. We've developed a method to share experiences across species barriers. The ancient Vorax leader's vertical pupils narrowed. Explain. The Nivorans communicate partly through telepathy, direct mind-to-mind contact, Daniel said. Humans communicate through language, symbols and sounds that represent ideas. We've created a bridge between these methods. It would allow you to experience the truth directly, not just hear about it. Thexashal was silent for a long moment, then he said, "The Nivorans once tried to use their mental powers against us. Many died. This is different," Silva explained gently. "We're not trying to control or influence, only to share. You would remain fully conscious and in control. Daniel will serve as the bridge between our minds." After consulting with his guards, Thexashal finally agreed. "I will try this method, but any sign of deception or control in this station will be destroyed." They sat in a circle: Daniel, Silva, Ethral, Thexashal, Laura, and Samuel. Daniel held Silva's hand on one side and gestured for Thexashal to place his scaled hand on Daniel's other arm. The others joined hands, completing the circle. "Focus on the memories you wish to share," Daniel instructed. "I will serve as the translator between minds." For several minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then Daniel gasped as images and feelings flooded his consciousness. He became the bridge, translating the Nivoran telepathic impressions into patterns the Vorax could understand, while simultaneously converting the Vorax thought structures into forms the humans and Nivorans could receive. They shared not just facts but experiences: the suffering of refugees, the fear of extinction, the pain of loss. Most importantly, they shared the context of the original conflict, seeing it from multiple perspectives for the first time. After nearly an hour, they broke the connection. Everyone in the room was silent, processing what they had experienced. Thexashal was the first to speak, his voice softer than before. "For centuries we have believed that the Nivorans threatened to enslave our minds," the ancient commander said. "But I have now felt the truth. The phrase that began our war, 'Our minds will join yours across the stars,' was not a threat but an invitation to peaceful communication." Ethral nodded slowly. "And we never understood why the Vorax attacked so suddenly. We thought they feared our very existence when they were truly afraid of mental domination." "A translation error," Laura whispered. "A single misunderstood phrase led to a war that nearly wiped out an entire species." Thexashal's next words shocked everyone. "The Vorax leadership has known the truth for nearly 400 years, he admitted. "Our historians discovered the error in ancient records, but by then the war had taken on a life of its own. Too many had died. Too many resources had been committed. Pride and politics kept the conflict going long after its meaningless beginning was discovered." "And now?" asked Samuel, speaking for the first time since the mental sharing. "What happens now?" "Peace," said Thexashal simply. "Not immediate trust. That must be earned on both sides. But an end to war, beginning today." 1 year later, representatives from Earth, the Nivoran people, and the Vorax Dominion gathered on a new space station orbiting Jupiter, a permanent diplomatic outpost designed by all three species. What had begun as a tentative ceasefire had grown into genuine diplomatic relations. Laura, now serving as Earth's primary representative to both alien societies, stood with Daniel and Silva as they watched ships from all three worlds dock at the station. "We never expected to be the ones bringing peace to conflicts older than our civilization," Laura said. "Humanity was just trying to help a dying species." "That is precisely why you succeeded where others failed," said Ethral, joining them at the viewing window. The elder Nivoran had aged visibly over these years but seemed more at peace than ever before. "You were not bound by centuries of hatred. You saw us as people in need, not as ancient enemies." A delegation of young Vorax officers arrived, nodding respectfully to the humans and Nivorans. Under Thexashal's leadership, the younger generation was being taught the true history of the conflict and the importance of understanding across species boundaries. "We've established the first tri-species research colony on a planet 20 light-years from here," Daniel told Laura. "Scientists from all three worlds working together on shared goals. It would have been unimaginable just 2 years ago." The station rotated, Jupiter came into view, a vast swirl of storms and colors. Beyond it, barely visible as a small blue dot, was Earth, the planet that had offered sanctuary to the forgotten aliens and, in doing so, changed the course of galactic history. "Humanity will be known for this," Silva said softly, taking Daniel's hand. Not for your weapons or your technology, but for your compassion. When faced with those in need, you chose to help rather than turn away. That single choice has altered the future for 3 civilizations and perhaps many more to come. Earth, once a small world at the edge of an ordinary galaxy, had become something extraordinary, a symbol of hope in a universe where such things had been in short supply for far too long.